Checkity check, check, check. Checkity check, check. Hey guys, what's going on? It is hot in California. I waited a while before I came out to shoot this video because it was hot here. Today we are talking about the basic suspension upgrades. The goal of the video is so you know just enough after this video to start having a conversation about the upgrades you want to make. That's the goal. We're not going to get scientific. We're not going to dive way into the details. I'm going to talk about the amount of lift and the components and what they do and some of the considerations just to dispel any confusion. Dispel any confusion. Yeah, I'll go with that. All right. So first of all, lift. If you go over 3 inches of lift, you start getting into expensive suspension. So I recommend 2 to 3 inches of lift on your first rig when you first want to upgrade your suspension. If you think about it, the more you lift up your rig, just think of your tires stretching out that suspension, right? Getting higher, your tires are doing this, right? Also, your pinion angle. What are your drive lines doing? They're doing this. So you have to start buying really expensive engineered metal hardware to compensate for all that. So it gets spendy. That's high dollar. So I recommend 2 to 3 inches of lift because you stay within spec with very few suspension components. We're going to get to suspension components next. See? Start shooting a video. Here comes the Air Force. Okay. So with 2.5 inches of lift, on the venerable 80 that you see behind you, which is what this 80 has on it, I can fit 35-inch tires, go anywhere I want to go, and there's no suspension rubbing, tire rubbing whatsoever. You have to do your own research because every vehicle is different. How much lift for what size tire? Do your own research. If you happen to have an 80 series Land Cruiser, I will tell you that 2.5 to 3 inches of lift, 35-inch, or actually 315/75 R16 tires fit just fine, okay? One of the magical characteristics about the 80. It's not complicated in that regard. That's what I recommend. Now let's talk about the suspension components. Here's what they are. This is what this 80 has on it that is upgraded. It has springs, upgraded springs, heavy duty shocks, offset caster bushings, and spacers. That's it. Costs about $900. Not that, and look. Dang. So it's not that expensive. You lift it up more than that, you start getting into the high dollar. Now, let's talk about those components briefly and what they do. So the springs keep your car off the ground. You're going to load this rig up. As you load this rig up, it's going to start doing this. Yes, there are suspension characteristics. It softens and smooths the ride. But its equally important partner is the shock. And not only does the shock cushion the compression of the suspension, but it also dampens the rebound. If you put heavy-duty springs on your rig, it's going to take a lot to compress them. What's going to happen once they are compressed? Oh, buddy. They're going to want to rebound. And your shock dampens that rebound. So you have to find the proper balance between both. In this, I have heavy-duty Bilstein shocks and the heavy Old Man Emu springs. It's a fairly decent setup. I'm going to tell you how I would improve it in about 2 minutes. Offset caster bushings. It does just that. It adjusts your caster. That's the this. The camber is the this. Caster, think casting a fishing rod. The effect that has is it keeps your rig tracking straight as you lift it. If you don't do the caster offset bushings, your suspension gets a little bit twitchy and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel factory. It feels hacky. So that's what the caster bushings, the offset bushings do. And then I have spacers on my sway bars because my truck's higher. And so I just need to drop where they connect. That's all there is to that. And those are the components on my suspension upgrade. Am I completely happy with this setup? I think you would be completely happy with this setup for a while. I have been. How would I improve it? I would improve it by putting a more heavy-duty racing shock on the rig because I am under shocked. I have plenty of spring, so I don't sag. I'm good. But when I compress that suspension, boing, boing, boing. Some of you guys saw that video. 6,000 pounds of fire.
Yeah, baby.
6,000 pounds of fire. Just bounce, bounce, bounce. That's because I'm under shocked. The shock doesn't dampen the rebound as much as it should. So I would probably go with King. I've never heard a complaint from anybody I know about King shocks. I've heard complaints about the other popular guys. King seems rock solid. That would be my choice. And then the other thing I would add to my suspension setup is hydraulic bump stops. The reason any of your passengers, the one thing any of your passengers would hate is when you ground out your suspension. When you compress it all the way and you're hitting a solid rubber block, it will rattle your frickin' teeth and you will hear things like, it's not necessarily super bad, but it hurts. And so hydraulic bump stops soften, they dampen the last few inches of your suspension travel before it grounds out, and it keeps that hard jolt from happening. And so I would put on hydraulic bump stops and King racing shocks on my suspension. Now, here's the deal with killer suspension components. Let's talk shocks. Here is the cost curve for super good shocks. It goes like this. Standard, standard, good, good, really good, great. Off camera. It's a huge jump in cost. And that's the reality about the top 20%. It's expensive. So if you do the research, you're going to go, dang, they're really proud of those shocks. And they are. But they're good. People use them for that reason. So that's how I would improve my suspension geometry. If I had, or components, if I had a piece of advice to give you guys before we wrap up, it is buy once, cry once again. I've iterated on my suspension. I've tried different springs. I've tried the airbags in my springs. I've tried a lot of different things. I switched from the original Old Man Emu shocks when I had to the upgraded heavy-duty Bilstein. I would just do your research, figure out exactly what you need first, get it, take your lumps, and have a good quality suspension from the get-go. Look into Old Man Emu, look into that cost, look into King, look into hydraulic bump stops, look in the range of 2 to 3 inches of lift, and that's really going to get you started. Now, the high dollar stuff that's more lift, more of a suspension lift, go that route too. There are kits. Here's the deal. I'm going to mention my friends, Pack Racing. This is not sponsored by them. They didn't ask me to say anything about it. But I visited them in North Carolina. You call them up. They do racing springs, high performance springs. They got a whole library of test cases that they draw from. You call them up, you say, here are the characteristics that I want from my suspension, and here's my expedition weight on each of the 4 corners. And they will custom make a set of springs for you. So if you really want to go a notch above the kit price and you want to fine tune your racing springs, give Pack Racing a call. I'll have their contact information in the description. Tell them Michael at Overland Bound sent you. I like that. I like them knowing that I'm giving them a good word. And it's not as expensive as you might think. It's like $1,000, something like that. $1,000 for 4 springs, and you know, you're like, dang, that's spendy. Yeah, but like I said, you're really dialing it in. They're going to work with you on your set of springs. So anyway, if you want to go that route, check them out. And that's it, you guys. That's basically it. Now, I know there are a ton of people out there with great knowledge on suspension setups. Please feel free to offer your advice in the comments. Tell us what you know, tell us what you use, and you guys do your own research, all right? So this is a video to get the conversation started for your new suspension upgrade, and I hope it was helpful, all right? Stay safe. Tomorrow we're going to talk about road trip. The summer is here. We want to get out there on the road. Now, what are some of the considerations in today's day and age with this global craziness? What are some of the things we got to consider to stay safe? The good news is this. As overlanders and adventure travelers, you already do a lot of the things you need to be safe when you're out there on the road. All right, you guys, take care. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you tomorrow. Oh yeah, a quick shout out, member 24577 Overland enthusiast in the community in Belmont, California. Thank you for recommending this topic. It's a good one.